a year later, I wound up through uh, a woman I met in a class said, "Hey, um, it sounds like you don't ever go out and have any fun. Like, why don't you come out and join us? Like, go out dancing and stuff like that." And I was like, maybe I should go out and, you know, have some fun. And so, uh, probably shouldn't have listened to her that night. Shouldn't have gone. Because uh, my, uh, I met who would wound up being my first husband, and uh, he seemed like a great guy, and he was, you know, it's hard to imagine what I saw in him now, good looks or even, but at the time he seemed like he was good looking, um, and I was feeling really even lower about myself. I felt like the only thing that gave me any kind of feeling of any kind of worth or whatever was what I was accomplishing in my dance. And now that was gone. So, I absolutely had no worth or feeling of self esteem or anything. I was just kind of going along. Like life was just kind of day in, day out. And so he brought some life back into it. It didn't matter that it was wrong. It just mattered that it felt exciting.
Mm-hmm.
And he had interest in me. And so, um, you know, um, and that was exciting for me. And so, um, my parents weren't real big fans of him. And I think that made it even more exciting is that I was like, you don't like him? Well, that's even more fabulous.
Yeah, being a rebel.
Yeah. So, they couldn't have told me anything. And I was a grown adult at that point. So they didn't really have any room to talk anyhow. So, um, after dating about, I don't know, maybe 8 months or so, for whatever reasons, I can't even remember now, things that were going on at his house, he needed to move out and on his own. And I thought, perfect. I don't want to be where I am either. So I moved out too, which was the start of the really bad decisions for myself. Um, because even before we got married, some of the bad signs started percolating. Um, but I was just so set on just like I was so out of control of my life that I just didn't know what to do, and I wasn't getting any help that I needed. And so uh, a year after we dated and stuff, we wound up getting married. And about 6 months into the marriage, we had moved down to Ohio. And that's when it really set in. He really started getting uh, abusive. It was when he got really angry and he knocked a whole wall down. And um, and the drinking started getting out of control, and him coming at me, uh, that I realized, this isn't so much fun anymore. Like the fun had, completely ended. And I knew I didn't want to be in where I was, but I also knew at that point that, um, I certainly wasn't going to go back and tell my parents that I'd made the wrong choice, because at that point it was all about saving face. That I had, at 23, made the decision to marry him because I thought I was being very adultish and I knew better. And, um, there was no way I was admitting to anybody that I had made a bad decision. And so, uh, I was going to stick it out. And I thought, I'm just going to keep continuing to do what I'm doing. Plus, now we were out of state. So now I'm cut off from my family, and I'm cut off from my brothers. And, um, it just, I remember like a year after that, then I wound up pregnant with my son. So now I have a child that I've brought into this mess. And I remember being pregnant. And I remember that feeling of when being pregnant and when he knocked me over when I was pregnant. And that feeling of if I'm pregnant with our child and it doesn't even matter, it doesn't even matter that I'm pregnant. Like, wow. Like, where's the boundaries? Like,
Mm-hmm.
there's just no boundaries on anything. Like, and just, um, you know, uh, and just his screaming at me and, uh, telling me how stupid I was and the vulgar language he would use at me. And, um, and then when people would come, he would just, try to act like everything was okay.
Just completely change.
Yeah.
Put on a new
And then,
mask.
yeah. And his big thing was, though, is that if things were getting out of hand, he would go outside the house and he would cut the telephone lines so that I couldn't call for help.
Oh, jeez.
And as the years went on, um, uh, he got addicted to pain pills, and pain pills and alcohol do not mix. And, um, you know, um, I can remember, uh, him taking my kids and hiding them and telling me that unless I had sex with him and telling him I loved him, I would never see my kids again.
Jeez. That's terrible.
You know, um, and when I realized that it, I was with him for 10 years, and when when he raped me and I wound up pregnant with my daughter, uh, I realized it was time to leave. And it took me 3 times of filing a divorce to finally leave him. And when I had my daughter and I looked at her and I said, I have to leave for her.
I found that children or having kids involved is a really good motivation for people to get out of these relationships and do it for the kids.
I had to leave, yeah, because I needed her to know that it's not okay to be treated that way. The thing was, though, is that it was really good that I got away, but he really left the picture. He was like not involved, but he would be there like at their like family holidays, and he would do like, I mean, he was never there for anything. And he would pull stuff for a while before he didn't see them, where, he would say, well, tell my son, well, I'm not, if my son would forget his like soccer shoes, say, well, I'm not taking you to the soccer game. It's not my problem your mom signed you up for soccer. I'm not driving all the way over to the house to pick them up. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, you can't take your son to a soccer game? Like, I can't believe that, or he would like, he never went to any of the kids like anything they were involved in. I'll never forget when my daughter was in 10th grade and she saw him, at his aunt's house. And she came home one weekend and she said to me, she said, Dad told me that it's my fault that I haven't seen him in years. And I'm like, why is that? And she said, because you you got me involved in competitive gymnastics, and if I wasn't gone so often and spent all these hours, that I would be able to see him. And I said, you need to stop right there. And she's like, what? And I said, it's never your fault that you're doing what kids are supposed to do, and that's like figuring out what it is that you like to do, what's going to make you you. And I said, if your dad wanted to know who you are and what you're interested in, your dad could actually once a week say, hey, I'm going to come pick you up, take you out to dinner, and actually take you and see what it is you're doing and be interested in what his daughter's doing. Don't you ever take on the responsibility of what it is that your dad, chooses not to be accountable for. That's just him using it as an excuse and trying to make you feel guilty. Like, that's the kind of stuff like he would do, or if it was like Christmas time or their birthday, and his family would see him and he'd be like, oh my gosh, I forgot your card at home that had the gift card in it that would never appear ever.
Yeah.
Like, like that's, so, um, like those things always plagued on that they, will forever have to deal with. But, for me, um, I still never started getting some of the help I still need to get with, because, I never dealt with the identity crisis I had. And now I had years of abuse
Yeah.
on top of an identity crisis. And so I kept remaining silent. And, I'm pretty resilient. And, I had finished my education, which was a great thing for me. And I had a good career, which allowed me to have the ability to have a really good career, which so many don't have the ability to have, which afforded me luxuries to have for myself and for my kids. But there was predicaments that he created, and there was, it took 2.5 years for the divorce to get finalized. Um, and, um, I tried to have him removed from the house while we're getting divorced, and the court system was horrible. And through that divorce, I wound up losing the house. He wound up letting the house go into foreclosure. So not only did I lose the house, but I lost my equity, my credit. Um, I had to buy everything brand new, for that. Uh, I mean, when we first moved out of there, um, and the kids would go back to visit, he rented the kids' rooms out. And when they go there, they'd have to watch somebody be in their rooms with all their stuff, and they'd have to like sleep on the floor in the family room.
Jeez.
Um, you know, uh, um, but so I had to start all like basically all over again, not only for me, but for my kids. Like brand new silverware, brand new towels, brand new like starting from like nothing. It's like you lose everything and had to start all over again. And I had to start all over again from the monetary things and physical things, and then there's the emotional for them. And there was no room for me to deal with me, and I just kept pushing it to the side and just dealing with what I need to deal with, because there was a lot to deal with: my career, which was 5 states,
Oh
and
wow.
then dealing with whatever they need to do. And um, I had no family in the state, so I had no help. So
Yeah,
it was
and the
me.
support system is so important, and that's just so
Yeah,
much
I
for
had
one person
no.
to have to handle.
Yeah, I had no support system around. So I was always having to figure things out by myself. And people used to always say, "God, you're like Wonder Woman. Like you're the bounce back kid. Like you always seem to be able to figure it out." So the more people said that, I had this feeling like, "Oh, okay. Well, I can't tell people that I'm falling apart or that I can't figure it out or that I need help or whatever." So then I would feel like, "Oh, I got to figure this out by myself." So then I would put myself in situations or make decisions that wound up being not a good decision, which then would create more obstacles for myself, instead of like breaking down and saying, I'm a mess. Like I'm falling apart. Like I need help.
Mhm.
Like things aren't going well. Like I don't know what to do. Like this sucks. Like I don't know how to get through this. Like when I was going through the divorce, I had even asked my dad, like, I need help in this. And he said, "Well, I don't want to get in the middle of divorce, because if something should happen to you, I don't want to be able to not see the kids again. So I still want to be able to have a good relationship with him." And I was like, "Well, okay." Well, that kind of puts it clearly. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, um, but so I was, always put in the situation of feeling like I couldn't go to anybody. Nobody would be there to understand. Um, so, and when you go so many years without telling anybody what really is going on, and people didn't talk about abuse,
Nope.
like
Just
they
held
do
it
now.
in.
And so, um, so when you go that long, like it's almost hard for people to understand. Like that really happened. Like you really went through. Like why would you stay? Like if that was really going on, like you're a smart person. Like why would you actually stay? Like that really did happen. Like I still today get like that really like people question you. Like almost are the victim over and over again, because
Yeah.
people question you as to why you would be so ridiculous, to stay in that situation. So, um,
And that question puts the blame on you
it puts the blame on you
when you're
over and over
scared.
again. Yeah. And so y- you don't say anything because you don't want to be judged or seem um dumb or unintelligent, or that, oh, why would you make that bad decision, or why would you make other bad decisions based on that bad decision. And so it's just this domino effect that just never gets any better.
Mhm.
And so it was just this constant, you know, one bad decision after bad decision after bad decision that I felt like I was constantly going through. And so I, dabbled my feet in dating over the years, and um, you know, each of those relationships had similarities in the other relationships in my marriage, or like with my dad, because I never dealt with the issues.
So it's just
And
stacking one on
so,
top of another.
yeah, so I walked away from those relationships, and it wasn't until about 5 years ago now, I uh, actually survived 3 pulmonary embolisms.
What is that?
It's blood clots in your lungs.
Oh wow.
And uh, I looked death in the face. And, I'm still in great shape. Bike, I was biking 25 miles a day, not overweight, in excellent shape, don't smoke, not a big drinker. Like, I'm not that person that you would think of, needing to concern myself with it.
Mhm.
So, um, I spent 9 days in ICU, and I spent 8 weeks in the hospital. And at that time, I'd spent over 20 years in corporate America in packaging sales, and uh, in a very male dominated industry. And I said, um, during that time, I said, I can't do this anymore. And I started looking at myself, and I said, whether you believe in God or the universe or whatever your belief system is, and it was like a wake up call of like, you've been doing this a long time, and you had a much bigger picture in mind of what you were supposed to be doing, and this wasn't it. But you've been through this, and you have a bigger purpose. Um, but you have a choice. You can go back and continue to do what you're doing, because that's a choice. You can wallow in the fact of being in the hospital here, or you can choose to look in the mirror and look at this amazing person that you are, because you're pretty darn amazing, because look at the shit you've been through, and you've gotten through all of it.
Yeah, you're a fighter.
And so um that's the choice I made. I chose, and I worked really hard on it and stuff, and for the first time looked in the mirror and said, you know I really like this person. And uh, that's taken a lifetime to get to that point of actually really liking the person that I am. And uh, 2 months after I got out of the hospital, I packed up everything that I owned, and my daughter was graduating from high school, going to be going off to college, and my son was already uh, uh, in his, at the end of his college. And I moved 2,900 miles to Arizona, not knowing one person or any business connections out here. and decided I was going to start my own company and stuff and take what I learned from being a corporate America and learn from a lot of bad decisions and bring those worlds together and build what I'm doing today. And, you know, back in June, uh, I wound up on the cover Entrepreneur magazine,
Oh,
which was like
nice.
amazing.
That's awesome.
And yeah, and 2 weeks ago, I got interviewed by Oprah Winfrey magazine.
Awesome.
So
Congrats.
yeah, um, and now I help women who've been through domestic abuse, and I've developed 6 new courses on. They're called Fearless. The next 5 steps moving forward after domestic violence, which I work with domestic violence centers, universities, and police and sheriff's department to help them work with victims when they go in and stuff. And so, and I've developed my own women's summit to help women meet them where they are so that they can envision themselves being in a different spot.
What's been your biggest
And
obstacle with creating all of this?
what's my biggest obstacle is with any kind of business is there's always challenges of how to connect with the right people,
Yeah.
and I've had to work through my own story, you know uh and that's okay. The biggest thing that you can do is when no one said when you own your own truth and you own your own past that um as much as it frees you, nobody said that going through that journey that it's easy and that it doesn't have its own bumps and stuff like that. um because I've had to confront every decision that I've made, and uh it's been my own private thing that I've had to go through. That's some of those things. I do some of that in my own private things because uh that's for nobody else to judge but myself, because those are my own private moments of why did I do that, and I only have myself to answer to.
Mhm.
Nobody else uh gets to judge it. Nobody else has to deserves an answer, of that. Um, because I was the one who went through it. I was the one who made the decision on it. So I'm the one who has to deal with I'm the one who dealt with the ramifications, and um, I'm the one who made the choices. So I'm the one that has to look it in the face
Mhm.
um, for what it was. But through that process, um, it's been freeing because I've owned all of that, and now nobody can use it against me. My father tried to, so about a month ago now, he tried to use it against me and try to rip me apart, and it doesn't affect me. It actually makes him look worse.
Yeah. What's been your biggest resource for helping you heal?
I spend the, I've probably uh, I've I've done counseling. I've done a lot of counseling. I A lot of the courses I've developed are things that I've done myself. Um, that is like building, positive attribute journal, which has been a huge mindset shift for myself. Being able to look in the mirror um, with and without makeup, and continue to look at myself in the mirror until the point where I can look at it without seeing any faults in myself, and just look at it and say, "Oh yeah, you look good." be okay with it.
Yeah, that's a
And
beautiful
it's
thing.
important to do that because most people look in the mirror and the first thing they do is find something wrong with themselves.
Yeah, and I see that with some of my friends, them just talking themselves down all the time. It just hurts me to hear. And it's understandable because I do it as well sometimes. S- So it's easy to like sympathize for them. Where,
Yeah.
where
It's
can
not
we?
it's not easy getting through that process, but when you do, it's so freeing,
Mhm.
and it's amazing what you wind up bringing into your life.
And where can we find these courses if anyone's interested?
They need to contact me because right now that's the only way right now.
Okay, then I'll just push your website.
So you can put my website. You can also put my email address.
Alrighty, perfect. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. I know it's not an easy thing to do. It gets easier. And you said you're a public speaker, so you've probably done it a bunch of times, and you're on the cover of two magazines, which is awesome. That I congratulate you on that one. That is
You're
amazing and
welcome.
beautiful. And it seems like you're going to help a lot of women with your summit.
Well, thank you.
So, if you'd like me to be on your show, I'd be happy to do that. That would be awesome to
Yeah,
get to talk with you
absolutely.
even more. So, I hope you have a great night, and I'm looking forward to talking to you in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. If there's anything I can ever help out with, please let me know, Nick.
Thank you so much.